Ladies and gentlemen, students and scholars, teachers and trainers, professors and professionals, those who are watching, listening from the field of science, commerce, arts and engineering, the most honorable President Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, respected ministers and doctors, honorable advocates, advertisers, reverend fathers and mothers, affectionate sons and daughters. I, Dr. Rakesh from USA, heartily cordially welcome all of you. It is really nice time, nice place, nice section. You are listening about information technology and revolution in information. Dear friends, you know that our India day by day expansion and industrialization, even revolution in information is equally important for bringing our nation ahead in the different fields of agriculture, economy, industry, means of communication, means of transportation. Our India got freedom in 1947. This was the time which brought different type of freedom, like in our economy, society, politics, and Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, who became the first Prime Minister of India. Through the history of the literature, we understand that our history has provided glimpses, a great identity to the literature. For knowing the different changes in information, industrialization, we must go through the history of the literature. So for that, day by day, our present Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji efforting well for bringing our nation, for keeping our nation, for maintaining our nation's spiritual and cultural values all over the world. It's a dream that will be fulfilled by the common man of our society, for bringing wellness, goodness in the health of our youngsters. It is very essential to pay the attention on the traditionality and conventionality of our nation. As you have studied machines and emotions, will machines destroy emotions or will emotions destroy machines? This question was suggested long ago by Samuel Butler in Erehon, but it is growing more and more actual as the empire of machinery is enlarged. At first sight, it is not obvious why there should be any opposition between machine and emotions. Every normal boy loves machines. The bigger and more powerful they are, the more he loves them. Nations which have a long tradition of artistic excellence, like the Japanese, are captivated by Western mechanical methods as well as they come across them and long only to imitate us as quickly as possible. Nothing annoys an educated and traveled is so much as to hear praise of the wisdom of the East or the traditional virtues of Asiatic civilization. He feels a boy would feel who was told to play with instead of toy automobiles. And like a boy, he would prefer a real automobile to a toy one, not realizing that it may run over him. In the West, when machinery was new, there was the same delight in it, except on the part of a few poets and aesthetes. The 19th century considered itself superior to its producers, chiefly because of its mechanical progress. Peacock, in its early years, makes fun of them, makes fun of the STEAM intellect society, because he is a literary man to whom the Greek and Latin authors represent civilization, but he is conscious of being out of touch with the prevailing tendencies of his time. Rousseau's disciples with a return to nature, the Lake poets with medievalism, William Morris with his news from nowhere, a country, it is always June and everybody is engaged in haymaking. All represent a purely sentimental and essentially reactionary opposition to machinery. Samuel Butler was the first man to apprehend intellectually the non-sentimental case against machines, but in him it may have been no more than a Jew desperate. Certainly, it was not a deeply held conviction. Since his day, numbers of people in the most mechanized nations have been tending to adopt in earnest a view similar to that of the Erehonians. This view, that is to say, has been latent or explicit in the attitude of many rebels against existing industrial methods. Machines are worshipped because they are beautiful and valued because they confer power. They are hated because they are hideous and loathed because they impose slavery. Do not let us suppose that one of these attitudes is right and the other wrong, any more than it would be right to maintain that men have heads, but wrong to maintain that they have feet, though we can easily imagine Lilliputians disputing this question concerning Gulliver. A machine is like dozen in the Arabian Nights, beautiful and beneficent to its master, but hideous and terrible to his enemies. But in our day, nothing is allowed to show itself with such naked simplicity. The master of the machine, it is true, lives at a distance from it, where he cannot hear its noise, or see its unsightly heaps of slag, or smell its noxious fumes. If he ever sees it, the occasion is before it is installed in use, when he can admire its force or its delicate precision without being troubled from the point of view of those who have to live with it and work it. He has a ready answer. He can point out that owing to its operations, these men can purchase more goods, often vastly more than their great grandfathers could. It follows that they must be happier than their great grandfathers. If we are to accept an assumption which is made by almost everyone, the assumption is that the possession of material commodities is what makes man happy. It is that a man who has 2 rooms and 2 beds and 2 loaves must be twice as happy as a man who has 1 room and 1 bed and 1 loaf. In a word, it is thought that happiness is proportional to income. A few people, not always quite sincerely, challenge this idea in the name of religion or morality, but they are glad if they increase their income by the eloquence of their preaching. It is not from a moral or religious point of view that I wish to challenge it. It is from the point of view of psychology and observation of life. If happiness is proportional to income, the case for machinery is unanswerable. If the whole question remains to be examined. Men have physical needs and they have emotions. While physical needs are unsatisfied, they take first place. But when they are satisfied, emotions unconnected with them become important in deciding whether a man is to be happy or unhappy. In modern industrial communities, there are many men, women, and children whose bare physical needs are not adequately supplied. As regards them, I do not deny that the first requisite for happiness is an increase of income. But they are a minority, and it would not be difficult to give the bare necessaries of life to all of them. It is not of them that I wish to speak, but of those who have more than is necessary to support existence. Not only those who have much more, but also those who have only a little more. Why do we? In fact, almost all of us desire to increase our incomes. It may seem at first sight as though material goods were what we desire, but in fact, we desire these mainly in order to impress our neighbor. When a man moves into a large house in a more genteel quarter, he reflects that better people will call on his wife, and some unprosperous cronies of former days can be dropped. When he sends his son to a good school or an expensive university, he consoles himself for the heavy fee by thoughts of the social kudos to be gained in every big city, whether of Europe or of America. Houses in some districts are more expensive than equally good houses in other districts, merely because they are more fashionable. One of the most powerful of all our passions is the desire to be admired and respected. As things stand, admiration and respect are given to the man who seems to be rich. This is the chief reason why People wish to be rich. The actual goods purchased by their money play quite a secondary part. Take, for example, a millionaire who cannot tell one picture from another but has acquired a gallery of old masters by the help of experts. The only pleasure he derives from his pictures is the thought that others know how much they have cost. He would derive more direct enjoyment from Christmas cards, but he would not obtain the same satisfaction for his vanity. All this might be different and has been different in many societies. In aristocratic epochs, men have been admired for their birth. In some circles in Paris, men are admired for their artistic or literary excellence. Strange as it may seem, in a German university, a man may actually be admired for his learning. In India, saints are admired. In China, sagas. The study of these differing societies shows the correctness of our analysis, for in all of them we find a large percentage of men who are indifferent to money so long as they have enough to take a life on, but are keenly of the merits by which in their environment respect is to be won. The importance of these facts lies in this, that the modern desire for wealth is not inherent in human nature and could be destroyed by different social institutions. Should have to seek some other way of being superior to our neighbors, and most of our in the nature of a competition. For relative pain, a general increase of wealth gives no competitive advantage and therefore bring no competitive happiness. There is, of course, some pleasure derived from the actual enjoyment of goods purchased. No increase of human happiness as a whole, whether general or particular. If we are to argue that machinery increases of material prosperity, which it brings, not weight heavily in its favor, except in so far as it may be used to prevent absolute destitution. But there is no inherent reason used. Destitution can be prevented without machinery. Where the population is stationary, of this France may serve as an example, since there is very little destitution and much less machinery than in America, England, and pre-war Germany. Conversely, where there is much machinery, of this we may examples in the industrial areas of England 100 years ago, and of Japan at the present day. The prevention of destitution does not depend upon machines but upon quite other factors, partly dense population and partly political conditions. And apart from prevention of destitution, the value of increasing wealth is not very great. Meanwhile, machines deprive us of two things which are certain important ingredients of human happiness, namely spontaneity and variety. Machines have their own pace and their own insistent demands. A man who has expensive plant must keep it working. The great trouble with the machine from the point of view of the emotions is its regularity, and of course Conversely, the great objection to the emotions from the point of view of the machine is there regularity, is there irregularity, as the machine dominates the thoughts of people who consider themselves serious. The highest praise they can give to a man is to suggest that he has the quality of a machine, that he is reliable, punctual and exact, etc. And an irregular life has come to be synonymous with a bad life. Against this point of view, Bergson's philosophy was a protest, not to my mind, wholly sound from an intellectual point of view, but inspired by a wholesome dread of seeing men turned more and more into machines in life as opposed to thought. The rebellion of our instincts against enslavement to mechanism has hitherto taken a most unfortunate direction. The impulse to war has always existed since man took to living in societies, but it did not in the past have the same intensity or virulence as it has in our day. In the 18th century, England and France had innumerable wars and contended for the hegemony of the world, but they liked and respected each other. The whole time, officer prisoners joined in the social life of their captors and were honored guests at their dinner parties. At the beginning of our war with Holland in 1665, a man came home from Africa with atrocity stories about the Dutch there. We, the British, persuaded ourselves that his story was false, punished him. The published the Dutch denial. In the late war, we should have knighted him and imprisoned anyone who threw doubt on his veracity. The greater ferocity of modern war is attributable to machines which operate in three different ways. First, they make it possible to have larger armies. Secondly, they facilitate a cheap press which flourishes by appealing to man's baser passions. Thirdly, and this is the point that concerns us, they starve the anarchic, spontaneous side of human nature which works underground, producing an obscure discontent to which the thought of war appeals as affordable possible relief. It is a mistake to attribute a vast upheaval like the late war merely to the machinations of politicians. In Russia, perhaps such an explanation would have been adequate. That is one reason why Russia fought half-heartedly and made a revolution to secure peace. But in England, Germany and the United States in 1917, no government could have withstood the popular demand for war. A popular demand of this sort must have an instinctive basis, and for my part, I believe that the modern increase in warlike instinct is attributable to the dissatisfaction caused by the regularity, monotony, and tameness of modern life. It is obvious that we cannot deal with this situation by abolishing machinery. Such a measure would be reactionary and in any case impracticable. The only way of avoiding the evils at present associated with machinery is to provide breaks in the monotony and every encouragement to high adventure during the intervals. Many men would cease to desire war if they had opportunities to risk their lives in alpine climbing. One of the ablest and the most vigorous workers for peace that it has been my good fortune to know habitually spent his summer climbing the most dangerous peaks in the Alps. If every working man had a month in a year during which If he choose, he could be taught to walk an aeroplane or encouraged to hunt for sapphire of the Sahara, or otherwise enabled to engage in some dangerous and exciting pursuit involving quick personal initiative, the popular love of war would become confined to women and invalids. I confess I know no methods of making these classes pacific, but I am convinced that a scientific psychology would find a method if it undertook the task in earnest. Way of life, but not our instincts. Consequently, there is maladjustment. The whole psychology of the emotions and instincts is as yet in its infancy. A beginning has been made by psychoanalysis, but only a beginning. What we may accept from psychoanalysis is the fact that people will, in action, pursue various ends which they do not consciously desire, and will have an attendant set of quite irrational beliefs which enable them to pursue these ends without knowing that they are doing so. But orthodox psychoanalysis has unduly simplified our unconscious purposes, which are numerous and differ from person to person. It is to be hoped that social and political phenomena will soon come to be understood from this point of view and will thus throw light on average human nature. Moral self-control and external prohibition of harmful acts are not adequate methods of dealing with our anarchic instincts. The reason they are inadequate is that these instincts are capable of as many disguises as the devil in medieval legend, and some of these disguises deceive even the elect. The only adequate method is to discover what are the needs of our instinctive nature and then to search for the least harmful way of satisfying them. Since spontaneity is what is most thwarted by machines, the only thing that can be provided in opportunity, the use made of opportunity must be left to the initiative of the individual. No doubt considerable expense would be involved, but it would not be comparable to the expense of war. Understanding of human nature must be the basis of any real improvements in human life. Science has done wonders in mastering the laws of the physical world, but our own nature is much less understood as yet than the nature of stars and electrons. When science learns to understand, it will be able to bring a happiness into our lives which machines and physical sciences have failed to create. Dear friends, as you are listening, how have brought revolutionary change in the world. It brought industrialization in the different nations of the Europe, not only in Europe but all over the world, especially in Asia and African countries. Europe started establishing the colonies all over the world by industrialization, by mechanization, and it was the result that nobody could fight against them for the freedom, but ultimately our freedom fighters fought against them. First battle in 1857, then efforts was continued by our freedom fighters, sociologists, free thinkers, and social reformists started revolution missions against foreigners. What happened in 20th century? It was the starting of First World War and Second World War. At that time, India struggled hard in the presence of Mahatma Gandhi from 1914 to 47. We study in history, it was the age of Gandhism. After 1947, our India has brought different changes in the field of agriculture by creating and recreating green revolution, by making 5-year plannings in the presence of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. And in Indian politics, we see that India decided India will follow non-cooperation movement. India will follow non-alliance policy all over the world due to its developing condition. What happened after 1945? When the war was ended, the USSR came in power. But after 1990, we see in the history that it was the USA or the America which came in power, and now America, which has become the veto power all over the world. Dear friends, these are the political changes that has come by the revolution in information. Today, information technology and revolution in information has brought a great change. We see that by GPS, by different social media, the USA, the America is getting all informations, all online programs that we are watching, listening. Its information is being provided at the world level, firstly to America. But India is also has prepared, taking steps in information technology by launching 8 satellites. Thereby, India individually can progress. Today in information technology, there is a revolutionary and visionary change. Whether foreigners have brought, but basically starters, initiators, beginners of the different social media and Google, they belonged to our Indian motherland. So it is really a matter of proud for Indians. If they are watching, listening and learning through the downloadings, recordings and copying, imitating. These things are really helpful in learning new creativities, for bringing creativity. But it is applied only for the starters and beginners. Like the child in our family, who are taught by the parents through imitation, and they become good imitator. Likely that a young man, an old man, a scholar, a learner can be a good imaginator for bringing creativity. It will help a lot to produce different innovative and inventive changes in our information technology. Our India is being advanced day by day by establishing commercial relations and economical relations with other countries in the presence of our President Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. Root to fruit, bottom to top, first to last, who brought revolutionary and visionary change in the world. It is a great initiative that was taken by Indians in the form of transparency. Our old villagers, common people of our society, have become the best user of online programs, and they are transacting through online facilities. It is a great achievement of our nation. During Corona period, India got winning in the presence of Corona warriors. Thereby, our India got popularity in the world. 130 crore people won the war. Apart from these, our President Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji also made us aware about the cleanliness. According to our religious teachings, it is said that cleanliness is next to God. All the creators, generators, operators of our human body and the universe that we study in the different holy religions of our holy land, air, fire, soil, sky and water. These are the elements and objects of nature. Equally, these are important. If we are not awakened how to use these elements, then there may be imbalance in them, and by disturbing their balance, they may create any natural disaster, natural calamity, natural devastation that may bring harmful effects for our society and nation. So for maintaining that standard, our India is advanced in keeping spiritual values, social values of our nation. Dear friends, you know that there are different type of technologies we have started in the field of health, education. Even our students, those who are studying in colleges, universities, India and abroad, in Harvard, Oxford, Pennsylvania, Cambridge University, and they are doing research. The greatest step of research, the greatest topic and title of the research is the spiritualism that is required greatly to be researched by them. No doubt, many countries are advanced in spiritualism, but not more than Indian motherland. This is the Indian land which has provided the platform to all the researchers of the world. all the languages, custom, color, creed, whatsoever we observe, that were generated by our Indian motherland. And we read that our forefathers, foretellers, forecasters, formers who came first on this Indian land, who got birth on this earth, they provided us atmosphere and environment of nature by the purity of the soul. It is said in all holy religions that if you want to get success, then you must have soul power. But there is no market in the world that can provide us self-confidence. Self-confidence or soul power can be breeded only by doing meditation. When we repeat the holy words of the different religions at the different religious places, we get a lot of oceanic energy, which is numberless and uncounted, that creates oneness, equality, unity in our thoughts and ideas. That helps us in bringing purity of our soul. And that's why it is rightly said in all our holy religions that this human body is the supreme and matchless, incomparable. All over the world, we read it in the chapter of the Genesis. The Holy Bible expresses that God ultimately creates His own form in the form of human body. And then it was welcomed, respected, saluted by the different angels for its uniqueness, incomparability, and matchlessness. So, dear friends, in this human body, we are to feel the presence of that celestial light, that light and sound which created the whole world, about what and about which Swami Vivekananda analyzed, observed. When he went to the USA, he addressed through his message, which was and it became healer, minds and heart of the listeners, those who were present in that religious conference. Yes. So, thanks. May God bless all of you.